All right, let's talk scholarships. And so I'm really excited for this segment because we have like an all-star crew. Like, listen to these resumes here. First off, we have first Canada alum from Team 5024 Radar Robotics, biomedical engineering student at McMaster, and a 2020 recipient of the Canadian Women in STEM Awards. Sarah Arnold is here. Hello, Sarah. Hey.
Hi, Karthik. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being on the show. We're excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Next up, we have another First Canada alum from Team 3161, the Tronic Titans, mechatronics engineering student at the University of Waterloo, and 2020 recipient of the Don Bosey Leadership and Innovation Canadian Scholarship. Also a world champion a couple times in another robotics program. We have Nick Rampertad.
Hey, Karthik. How are you?
I'm great, man. So good to see you here. Glad you could be here. And finally, you saw her just a second ago in the McMaster video. She's a First Canada alum and a mentor for Team 4039, Makeshift Robotics, mechanical engineering student at McMaster University, and the 2019 recipient of the Canadian Women in STEM Award. So the year before Sarah won hers, we got the two winners of this award here, Angela Toles.
Hi, Karthik. How's it going?
It's going great, Angela. Thank you for being here. Angela, also this summer, you got to participate as a mentor in the STEMathon, which was super cool as well. So we got everyone here. This is like awesome. I'm glad you are all here. And we have a lot of questions to ask, but I think we just want to go around the table. If you could each tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you now? And tell us about the scholarships that you've received. So let's go in the order that we came in, and we'll start with Sarah.
For sure. Hi, I'm Sarah, everyone. So I'm currently at McMaster University in their Integrated Biomedical Engineering and Health Sciences program. And so as Karthik said, I got the 2020 Women in STEM Award, as well as an engineering scholarship to McMaster, as well as some community scholarships and scholarships given by my school.
That is amazing. Congratulations on all of that, Nick.
Yeah, so I'm Nick Rampertab. I'm currently at the University of Waterloo for mechatronics engineering, which is a
Nick,
mix.
I got to interrupt you, buddy. Water, water, water.
Lou.
It's what we do.
And I'm the recipient of the 2020 Don Bosey Leadership Scholarship, as well as the 2020 T Scholarship for Community Leadership.
Amazing. And Angela?
Hi, my name is Angela. I currently go to McMaster and I'm in mechanical engineering. It's actually my first year in the stream because first year is general, and I'm also doing a minor in sustainability. At my school, I'm involved in things such as the Women in Engineering Society and bread suits, which people know a lot from McMaster. And I was on my first robotics team, Makeshift, from 2016 to 2019. And now I get to mentor them, which is super awesome. And in terms of scholarships, I was lucky to receive the Canadian Women in STEM Scholarship in 2019, the ArcelorMittal First Robotics Scholarship for McMaster, and I also received a research grant after my first year.
That's all crazy, like really cool how you guys got all those sponsorships along with like the amazing First Canada ones. How many scholarships did you apply to in total?
Shall we just continue in this order?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. I tried to count coming into today, and it was a good amount. I tried to count up, wasn't possible. I think probably around 20-ish, give or take a few, when you include all the ones for each like individual school.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Sarah. I would say about 20 as well, but the ones for each university as well take a lot of time. So yeah.
So I feel like I'm a little different here. So in terms of directly applying to scholarships, I actually, believe it or not, only applied to the Canadian Women in STEM Scholarship because a lot of universities are moving towards general applications. So I also applied to all of McMaster's because it's one application. And I also applied to all of Waterloo's. So that's what I was up to.
And similar to that, how did you for the ones that, obviously when you're applying to a school, there's the general, and Angela, maybe you want to explain that process a little bit for the students who might not be familiar. So so when you apply to the school, you're automatically entered into these scholarships, or are you saying you have to do some supplemental work? How does that work?
Yeah, so we call it a supplementary application, and usually you apply to the school through the application system through your school, and then you separately apply for scholarships. So specifically for both McMaster and Waterloo, because those are the ones I remember that I applied to, they have its own system that you're able to kind of do a virtual interview almost, where they ask you questions and you could submit a reference letter. So it is a separate thing that you have to usually be done by the new year. And by doing that, they actually can pick you for various scholarships, and what you tell them really controls what they pick you for.
Very, very, very interesting. And so for those of you who applied to other scholarships outside of the ones from school, how did you choose those? Where did you find them?
Yeah, so definitely, well, if you're applying to the university, definitely check which scholarships the university themselves offer. Honestly, your guidance counselor will become one of your best friends through this process. I don't know how many times I sat down there just asking about, what about this one? What about this one? Just looking for all those different opportunities. A lot of schools have like pretty much a book or a package that they will give you that lists all the different things. And then you just kind of look through and try and find the ones that you qualify for. And just kind of go for it.
Yeah, to add on to that, there's also a lot of community scholarships around. So usually, at least in my region, we had a whole website that gave you access to all the community scholarships around, as well as a lot of the people around you, either if that's mentors or siblings, reach out to them because they will definitely know a lot of scholarships around that might not be as well known. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could to add to that, I think it's also important that when we go to university, I vividly remember researching the universities, like with the program and what you want to go into there, what the quality of the program. It should be the same thing with scholarships, right? Like when you look at the universities, look to see what they offer, especially as first students. You guys should really check out which universities have scholarships just for you, because universities want you. So
That's a really, really important point, is that as much as you're applying to schools, the universities want you. And especially with scholarships, they're trying to lure you to the school. They're trying to lure the best of the best. And we know that so much of that is first students. We know how dynamic first students can be. So you can be a little bit choosy like that. And if you go to the First Canada website, you can see a listing of all the scholarships that are out there, whether they be university affiliated ones or First Canada affiliated ones, and it's a really, really good look. So I want to talk, I'm a process person. I'm very much like, what's the plan? What's the system there? So I'd love to hear from all of you, any of you, each of you, what was your general process for applying for a scholarship? Like, did you have, I know, like, Sarah, Nick, you said you applied for this many, and like, Angela, you did all these supplementary applications. Did you have like one generic essay that you kind of modified for each of them, or do you start from scratch each time? Sarah, let's start with you.
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely, first off, this process may very well change throughout like your 8 months of applying to scholarships, and that's completely okay. I know mine definitely, I think for the whole first month, I kind of just went forth, and by the end, I had this whole process going through for each of them. So I would definitely recommend, this is just my opinion, starting with obviously looking through the entire application and just making sure you qualify, and just really sit back and ask yourself, what are they asking me to show and how do they want me to show it? Because all of these applications, many of them want different things. Some have short answers, some have a video application, some of them, such as the Women in STEM, had a 500-word essay. So very different formats for all of them. But definitely I had like one master document where I put everything in, because for a lot of things, there'll be like the exact same question, but maybe 100 words less to talk about it. So you can kind of, quite honestly, like look at what you have and be, oh, can this work for this question? Yes, it can. So when you're applying to all of these, it can definitely help to save time, and then just make small changes to really tie back to what the scholarship's looking for, because you definitely want to think about what's the overarching goal. Is it community-based? Is it academic-based? Different things will ask for different situations. So just then reflect on your own situations and think, how can I really put myself out there in a way that they're looking for?
That is amazing advice. I want to talk to a couple points there, but I want to hear from Nick and Angela first.
Yeah. So my process was a little bit different. I kind of started off doing some of the more bigger, heavier scholarships at the start of the year. And that kind of gave me a basis for the rest of the year. So I could kind of take parts of each of those scholarships and apply it to some of the other scholarships that were asking for similar things. As well as a big thing that I found handy was having my resume ready to go. So when you're looking at your scholarships, you know what you did throughout high school and you know what would be applicable to that. which really helped me and made everything a lot more organized when I was trying to do scholarships. Right? Yeah.
Having your resume handy is it's a good thing any stage in life. At this, from now till you're retired, and maybe like even like past retirement, because so many people like do side gigs after they retire, because you never know when an opportunity might be there, and someone might just be like, "Hey, well, you have your resume." Like I did that to you like a few weeks ago, Nick. I was just like, "Hey, well, send me your resume. I'll float it out there." You know, it's like being ready with that is big. Angela?
Yeah, and I totally agree with what Nick said. I think for everything, and there's also virtual interviews, as I said earlier. So sometimes you're put on the spot when you have to apply for scholarships. So having even your resume, even just a list of things you're like, I definitely need to say this, that's always good to have. And especially as first students, there's so many things that you're going to want to bring up. So you want to hit on certain things. And even like we learn a lot from first. And I think chairman's is, for example, something we learn a lot from. And I remember in chairman's, when we've talked to the judges, they'd be like, okay, if they ask you a question, answer the initial question and then take it off somewhere else if you can, so you could highlight more points. It's actually kind of the same thing with scholarships. So you should try to do that as well. And yeah, and I just think it's great to personalize your essay because they want to really learn who you are. We love robots, but we're not trying to be a robot in our scholarship applications. So be yourself, talk about what you love, because really they do pick you person by person and they want to learn a lot about you and what you're passionate about.
That's great advice, Angela, especially the piece about what you're passionate about, because that's what is going to drive all of this. So I thought it was really interesting, Sarah, when I was listening to you describe your process. First of all, it was like, it just made my heart melt because I loved it. But also it reminded me like it's a very similar process to building a robot. It is very much the first thing you do is you look at the game manual and you figure out, okay, what are they trying to get us to do? What are we supposed to do? And that strategic design process that, we teach the strategic design process for robots, but it applies everywhere. It applies to the chairman's award, and it applies to any project you're going to work on in the real world. And I love how you used it. I don't know if it was intentional or by accident.
I've actually never thought of it like that before. I've honestly never thought of it that way, but that actually very much makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's the whole like looking at what you need, analyzing it, then figuring out how do I get there for the best result.
Right. And then like looking at your own resources, it's like, okay, what can I do and how can I manage my time and like what are my strengths? And it's like, oh, this one, I really do have a lot of strengths that they're looking for. So I'm going to focus on this application while, oh, this school's asking for some stuff that I haven't really done. Maybe I shouldn't put my energy to that, and it's like, it's the same process. And this process, this is why first, like people often ask me like, why do first students do so well out there? And it's not that because you know what a gear ratio is, or you know how to set up a CNC mill or whatever, like only like 1% of you are going to be using that stuff, but it's because you know how to solve big problems and you know how to compete and you know how to win. So like none of this was planned between Sarah and I. That was just that was like an instant advertisement for like the power of this program in strategic design, which is something that I am very passionate about. Emily, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as someone who's starting to go through this process.
Because I was I'm like at the beginning of going through the process. I think I might be a little late. But I really like that analogy of how you've broke it down, because now I'm thinking of it. Well, I should start doing that, because if I look for all the ones I want first, then I start doing all that. That would make it way easier. I'm leaving a lot of the big stuff for the Christmas break to work on it then. But yeah, I really love that. I think I might start doing that myself. With a lot of the scholarships, especially I believe the ones that you guys applied for, I know that there is a letter of recommendation that's asked. How did you ask for recommendation? Letters of recommendation. That's a big word. Letters of recommendations. And is it scary to ask for them?
Definitely a fair question. It's not as scary as it seems, okay? It's definitely not as scary as it seems. Depending on largely, and this kind of goes back to the whole making the game plan based on the game manual, think about what the application is and who can give you the best letter of recommendation for what they're looking for. So quite often, if it's based on science or engineering, your robotics mentor will be a phenomenal letter of recommendation. And yes, it can be a bit intimidating going to ask, but I'll be honest, I probably asked for a solid 7 or greater letters of recommendation from my robotics mentor, and it just became a running joke for us of how many I could ask by the end of the year. So yes, it can be a bit intimidating, but remember that these people, they want you to succeed. Like, and whoever you go to, if you feel comfortable enough going to them asking, to vouch for you, then I'm sure that they know you enough to really, really want you to succeed. So they want you to do well. So they want to help you get there any way that they can do that. So yes, they may joke about it, but at the end of the day, they will be so happy to like help you out and give you that letter, from my experience at least.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely reach out to anyone and everyone you think is applicable for that, but make sure that you also give them enough time to write a very good letter for you. You don't want to give them a half a week to write a letter for you, because it's not going to be as good as if you gave them a full month to do it. So just be aware of their schedule as well as yours and try to plan it out throughout your year.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. I had a similar experience too. I asked one of my teacher mentors, because you need one for the Canadian Women in STEM scholarship, to write it, and that was awesome. But I actually also had an experience where it was really daunting and scary. I did a co-op in high school at a McMaster lab, and the doctor there, I wanted to ask for, or I should say prof, I wanted to ask for a recommendation letter. And I knew her very well, but I just was scared to email her and ask, not knowing what she was going to say. Maybe she didn't have time. It's a lot of work. But I emailed her and I told her how passionate I was about it, about applying to MAC, about Canadian Women in STEM, about engineering. And we talked about it a little bit, and she was more than happy to provide it. So really just talk to them, tell them how much it means to you, and I guarantee they'll be more than happy to help you out.
Yeah, that's all. Like, to me right now, I'm thinking about it because I know I'm gonna have to eventually, like, who do I ask? Is it gonna be weird? And like that's really helpful for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of other people in my situation.
And I could say that doesn't go away into adulthood, because you often need references for jobs and whatever. And it's like asking someone just to be a reference on your resume. I still like, sometimes, because typically you're asking people who are mentors in your life. And so of course you're nervous, because like you look up to them, and so like that's natural, but that's okay. If I could add a couple tips just as someone who writes letters of recommendation. So Nick, you hit number one. Like, please give us enough time. I'm at the point now where I will say no if there isn't enough lead time given, because there's just so many going on, and sometimes it could just become a little bit overwhelming. I think the other piece is make sure that the person you're asking knows you really well, because I think there's sometimes a tendency where people's like, well, I want to get the person with like the best title or whatever, and so like, oh, like my dad's friend is a CEO of this company, but he might not actually know you other than like, yeah, she coached your little league team at one point or whatever. So you're much better getting a reference from like a mentor on your robotics team, who may just be, the title might just be just, as if there's a just junior engineer, but they've worked with you intensely and have seen you CAD the robot and whatnot. So like, I think that one is important. And also make it easy for the person who's writing you. So what I always do is I ask, can you give me a list of your grades and a copy of your resume? And anything that you're really proud of that you want me to talk about, tell me so I know specifically to mention it, because I may forget, and I may laser focus in on my relationship with you, but I may forget of something else that you've done that's really outstanding and is really cool. In terms of things you should not do, and tell a story, because we do story times here. I had someone send me a request for a resume. And first of all, I didn't know who this person was. They said they knew me and that we had talked, but I didn't remember this person. And they said, I understand you're a very busy person, so I've taken a liberty of drafting the letter for you, and you can just sign it. This actually happened. And like the letter was like, student X is one of the greatest students I have ever met. And I was just like, seriously? So I'd say, that's my fun story. So don't do that.
Yeah, I'd feel so awkward, because they'd be like, yeah, I remember you, and then they'd write a whole letter and be like, yeah, you just signed this. And
a great tip in the chat from Dave Ellis. Also telling the reference person a little background on the scholarship. What are they looking for? Like what's like Sarah, like the strategic plan, like this is.
Yeah, I've definitely, whenever I had one, I would print off like, or take a screenshot, like depending on the format, and just send it to them and be like, this is the scholarship themselves, and these are like the points they're asking for.
Yeah, definitely. I like to like do like a little chat with the person who I'm writing the letter for, and just be like, okay, let's go through this. I know I had one person request one time, and I was like, well, I only know you like through your volunteering at events. I'm sure you could find someone who knows you better. And then they were like, Well, actually, I specifically want you to focus on the volunteering events because I want to show my independence and leadership outside of my team and my school. And I was like, oh, perfect. That makes so much sense to me now. Now I know exactly what to talk about. So it's one of those. So there's a lot of good stuff coming out here. And, we talked about how to find scholarships, but like now in the essay, what makes a good scholarship essay? So we understand there's a plan and there's making sure that you're giving them what they're looking for, but what else makes a good scholarship essay?
Definitely be authentic. Say what you want. Say what you want to say, not necessarily what you think they want to hear. And this was definitely a mistake I made on some of my very, very early applications. I would write it more based, oh, what's going to sound the best versus like, well, how do I truly feel about this question? So definitely just be authentic with it and say what you want to say, but obviously have it related to the end goal of like answering the question and such. Yeah, and then obviously plan it out. And like, especially if you're doing short answer questions, you may have like 4 different questions and like 200 words each. Plan out ahead of time what you're going to talk about for all 4 questions and make sure you can highlight as many great things about yourself in each of those 4 situations. That's my best tip.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say the best thing to do is to tell a story through your essay. You don't want to just list off random facts about yourself. You want to be able to show that you did different things throughout your 4 years in high school, as well as in elementary school you can even go into. But you did it for a reason, not just to boost your resume, not just to do it for a scholarship, but you did it because you really wanted to do it. And now you're showing that you enjoyed doing it. So starting from grade 9 to grade 12, I throughout my essays, I told the story of how I got to the point I was and why I did it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important for them to really know like who you are and what you care about. And I know when I was a student on my team, I was always made fun of because I love to emotionally connect with people, and people would always be like, you make everybody cry because of like happy stories, like judges and stuff. And you want to have like a similar thing that when you're writing your scholarships, you really want them to get a sense of what you want, who you are. I remember in my Canadian Women's STEM scholarship, I actually started my essay with a quote. And it was something, I don't remember it specifically, but it was something about how, girls can be princesses, but they could build their own castles too. And I just wanted to set the tone for my essay. So really make it your own. And also just as like a writing point of view, make sure you go through it, edit it, good spelling, because that, even just like with job applications, that makes like a big difference as well.
Okay, you're all the experts, and this is great. A couple of things I want to just throw in there, but that tie back to what I was talking about last week on the show about the Chairman's Award, and then the one we did with HQ. As Angela said, the key to effective writing is rewriting, and that's like a quote that I live by. Just start early, repeat, repeat, repeat. And I think one thing that a lot of chairman's teams are really good at is that whoever's reviewing these may be reviewing a stack of essays. So how do you stand out? How do you be memorable? And I think one of the things, and Angela, I think this is a strength of yours, as you said, is they may not remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And so they already have a list of everything you've done. That's your resume. And that's like the boxes that you're filling in. So tell them a story. And like Angela, you mentioned earlier about getting passion across. And Sarah, you said be authentic. And that's another way to get these things going, is like that feel, and I think for a lot of you, you're describing, especially if you're applying to a first scholarship, a lot of people are gonna have similar stories of, my favorite moment was when I became the driver, or when we won the chairman's award, or how are you gonna make this stand out? How you need to tell them the specific emotional journey that might make it a bit more memorable. So Emily, are you taking this all in, getting ready for your applications here?
I'm soaking it all in and soaking all the knowledge from hoping that it'll give me luck. I really like what Nick said about telling a story. I know that I have so much I can say in my application, and I am so ready to write it. Then that helps a lot, being able to tell a story through it and start from grade 9, go to grade 12. My next question for you, and I think one of you mentioned it earlier, did you have any interviews? What were you like, and what's key to do a good interview? So Sarah, if you want to start.
Yeah, so similar to Angela, I had video interviews related to supplementary applications for a few different schools. So they weren't directly for the, like, it's not like you did it specifically for the awards. It was to be considered for both like admission specifically, but could also help towards scholarships. And so depending on the school, the process will be a bit different, but often they're very much like, they give you a question, you have a few minutes to prepare, then you just answer the question on the spot in a video interview. And so definitely these ones can be stressful, absolutely. Best bet is to have your resume there, make some jot notes beforehand, and just kind of have some talking points for different kind of things. Honestly, it's like a job interview. It's very much like a job interview. You're thinking about what are some of the best things that I've done that I want to talk about. And then if a question comes up that you think you can work that into, then just bring that up. So that's my best bet. There are, I know, some scholarships that have interviews separately. I never had that directly. So mine was always just through these supplementary applications. So that's definitely a good thing to consider.
Yeah, my best advice for the supplementary applications for each university is to practice as much as you can. So the great thing about these universities is that they actually give you practice questions and you'll be able to record yourself through the software that they give you. So I remember in winter break, I sat down and I just went through those over and over and over because I was too scared to actually start it. So I just kept practicing. So I would keep practicing and you'll get better over time because it's just like going into a judging room. So you guys already are pros of it. You're kind of just redefining what you're talking about. I was also in an interview for my TD scholarship where they took like the top 20 kids from across Canada or top 70 kids from across Canada. And yes, it was very nerve-wracking because you don't know how you compare to everyone else. But the key thing there is just to be yourself, kind of like what Sarah was saying before. You want to really connect with them and tell them a story as well through your interview of why you did what you did. But it's scary building up to it, but once you're in the interview, you've been through so many judging sessions, it's just like routine by now, and you can talk about what you've done a lot more easily than you think you can. So yeah.
It's funny because I feel like I'm like, wait, have we done this show before? Because it seems so similar to the chairman's show we just did, talking about the chairman's award, because so much of this applies over and over again. And I think that one of the things that we find, piece of advice for everyone is, it can be intimidating because like Nick said, you know, the TD one, it's like 70 of the best students across Canada. And sometimes like the Schulich Leader ones, like little bios get posted online before like, the interview process. And it can be nerve-wracking. You'd be like, oh, and imposter syndrome is a real thing that we all deal with, where it's like, oh, I don't belong here. That person's got a 99 average and their, you know, FRC team did this crazy autonomous mode, and you can feel like you don't belong, but you're there for a reason. And if you've gotten to that point, that means the school is interested, intrigued by you, and they want to learn more about you. And so we say this to chairman's teams all the time. Like they're like, oh no, like, you know, Exploding Bacon just presented right before us, and they are the best team in the world. And maybe they are, but the judges want to hear from you, and they want to know what you are. So don't try and be Exploding Bacon. Try and be the best version of you, and that's what's gonna impress the judges. But I know this just applies to everything. Just believe in yourself. You're here for a reason, and you're at this point in your life for a reason, and you're all awesome. So like, don't. It's easy to psych yourself out. I was like, I can never win, but I'm sure. Well, I mean, did you feel that? Oh, I can't win these scholarships. Did any of you have feelings like that?
Yeah,
For
most
sure.
definitely.
Definitely.
I could say for sure, like before the Canadian Women's STEM Scholarship, I remember we were packing for provincials and my mentor Monica was like, hey, they're presenting this. Are you excited? And I was like, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm excited to see who wins. And she was like, you applied for it. I was like, yeah, but I'm not going to get it. I'm excited to see who wins though. And she was like, what do you mean? So you need to like hype yourself up a little bit and just know that you deserve to be there too. And that there's a lot of people that are behind you that believe in you as well.
I think this segues nicely into our next question. That was an accidental segue. So I like it when it works out that way. But so for each of you, maybe we'll start with Sarah. What was it like when you found out you won the Canadian Women in STEM Award last year? I know it was different for you because it was virtual.
It was so different. It wasn't at provincials like we would have all hoped, sadly. But Well, it was middle of April, so weirdly enough, like 8 months ago, which is just so bizarre to think of at this point. But right, like when all this really started, I remember I was just in a very bad mood, and I was very like, just with everything obviously going on. And I just kind of was like, okay, guess we need to watch this. And my parents were around. I was like, guess you should watch. Like, it's was not expecting it. And yeah, it just kind of, obviously, I was blown away by it, and I did not expect to get it, but I was obviously very much over the moon with joy.
It was you and Nick won on the same show. So Nick.
Yeah, it was definitely a different experience. I was still in my pajamas watching the live stream. So I wasn't really prepared for it, but I remember watching it with my parents in my bedroom, and we were watching the video, and it was like, is Don Bosey talking about me? Is that me? It was crazy. And I was just over the moon about it. It was an awesome experience, and yeah, I wouldn't take it back for anything.
I thought one of the coolest things was that we were able to bring you to behind the scenes after the show to chat with Don Bosey and Kim Cooper and Mark Bredner. And I'll never forget your reactions. Cause like at events, sometimes like we see a scholarship winner and then we don't see them anymore. Like, and there's a focus on robots, but like it was a focus on the two of you. And I'll never forget just like the amount of joy the two of you had. It was really, really awesome. That's why I was so excited to invite you to be on the show today. So Angela, your story is super cool. You won yours in person at provincials from that very picture you're showing us right now.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, the story. I get emotional.
Tell the whole story from start to
honestly.
finish. Like from what
for
happened.
sure.
I don't even know. So
Yeah, so it was kind of funny. Provincials was kind of rough for me that year. Like it was going well, like with chairmans and robots and stuff. But I actually remember I wasn't feeling well one of the days and wasn't getting a lot of sleep, and it just wasn't a good time. And I even remember the day of I had like my hair up in like a bun and I was all messy, and it was no good. But I remember that day for some odd reason, which I didn't know why, they were like, oh, can you be an ambassador for the sponsor? I was like, oh yeah, we know that sponsor is totally fine. And so I got to sit with them next to the stage that day. And it seemed weird that they got me to do that. So I was sitting behind the stage. I had Jaylene, and then I don't remember her name, but she sung the national anthem. We were talking about like on to McMaster and all this great stuff. And then I saw the Mirais come on stage, and I was like, uh-oh, this is happening. I got nothing to worry about. And she started talking about the person, and I was like, that sounds kind of familiar, but it's probably not me. And then she continued and started to talk about specific things like, oh, she did this. And I was like, okay, that's starting to sound scary. And at this point, as Karthik and I were talking about, you could see, even look back on the Facebook photos from First Canada, you see me slowly sliding down the couch with my head in my hands, like slowly realizing that maybe they're talking about me. And like, Jaylene was probably looking at me like, is she okay? And when they finally, it got me the moment that they said Sippy, so our teacher mentor's quote at the end. And that's when I started to cry. And I knew my team cheering, they knew it, other teams were cheering. And I went on autopilot at that point because I just did not know what to do. And honestly, I have the plaque on my wall and the picture of hugging Kim and Mark and the Mirais, and I get so emotional because it's unreal that happened, and I'm so honored. And I just like a huge thank you to First Canada and to the Mirai family and anyone that provides scholarships, because you really make dreams come true. And as a woman in STEM, that really empowered me to, as going into engineering, mechanical engineering, not to let anything stop me because I'm a minority. So yeah.
I love these stories. These are like my favorite stories. I love hearing from teams like the moment when you won Woody Flowers or the moment when you won Chairman's. I think we should write a book of all of these. Of just like there's so many good ones. I have a few in my history, and it's just like, yeah, it was such a cool moment, Angela, because like a small number of us knew that you would want, and that's the reason you were brought down to be the ambassador. Was that we wanted to make sure you were right there as this was happening. And so we were peeking over at you as this was happening. And it was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. So, and that photo that your backdrop right now, you took from sitting in that spot, right?
Yeah. So like I said, unbeknownst to me, I was just there doing a sponsor thing. And so I thought the lights looked cool. I was like, oh, this is my last provincials. This is emotional. So I took the photo, and then not long after, honestly, was one of the best days of my life. So
See,
And your story, like your story is like one of those amazing stories that I've always wanted, and they're just so cool hearing about people having like winning Dean's List, winning Woody Flowers, like all these amazing things. And plus, like I hope this doesn't make you cry or anything, but like you inspire me yourself. Just like you're at McMaster for mechanical engineering, which is exactly what I want to go into. And you have the award that I really really want to get. So like ever since I knew because I may have known you before, like I think I met you before, but you've kind of inspired me through that. So yeah.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
I didn't mean to make you cry. It just, yeah.
Yeah, you see, this is very, very cool stuff. We have a good question from chat I want to make sure we get to in our time here. And what do you do for the leadership scholarships? As in, what do you think set you apart from others when applying for that scholarship? Because I think leadership is one of those, it's a esoteric term in some ways where a lot of people don't define it in different ways. So for anyone whose scholarships were based on leadership, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So none of my scholarships were specifically like solely leadership. Most of them were like a whole collaborative thing about all overall, but there were definitely leadership questions. And so for me personally, I really did talk about robotics and what I did, like, and I took some initiative with strategy and such, and that was like my big thing, and I focused on that. And that's very different from what many other people did, and that's maybe different from what you did, and that's okay. Just really think and reflect yourself about what have I done that can set me apart, because even if you don't think you do, I promise you, if you're on First Robotics, I am 100% sure you have a story somewhere in there of where you've been a leader, where you've gone above and beyond for something. So just really take some time to reflect on it. And if it's different than everyone else's, go for it. Yeah, so just definitely think, reflect. It may not be the first thing you think about, but just take some time to think it over. Yeah, that would be my best bet.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. A big thing that I would say about leadership is that you don't have to be the person in the front leading. It's not always about the team captain of your FRC team. Everyone has their own thing that they're leading, whether that's strategy or whether that's build. So you don't have to be the face of the team. And a big thing that I focus on when I talked about leadership in my scholarships is leading from the back. So being not the person in the front, but helping everyone else around and making sure that everything's running smoothly, because those people are leaders as well, and they take initiative when needed. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you're talking about being a leader, it's really important to note that it's not like it just happened. You all have a story of rising up. And I think the most shocking thing that I always told people when I said, yeah, I'm team lead and stuff, but what's most important to me is that when I came into first, I couldn't even talk to people. I was so scared, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. What was post-secondary? I don't even know. What's engineering? What's robots? I don't know. And I was by myself. And going through first, I became a person I am today. And that's just the rise of somebody that can become a leader. And it's really reflecting on where you came from and what this program gave you. That's awesome to talk about.
I think that's just so cool for people to see the journey. You know, like here you are, Angela, you're on the show, and like Emily's just telling you about how much you inspire her, and then you're telling us when you started this, you couldn't even talk to people. Like just like that journey is really interesting. A question I have that I think might be important and for our audience is, what was like a tough question on the application that you struggled with, and how did you answer that question? I know this wasn't in the list of questions I provided you in advance. That just came to me now.
There's so many questions, but it's hard to remember some of them.
I know, I'm trying to think back to like, oh boy.
I have one, if that's okay.
Yeah, go right
that
ahead.
I have heard before. Sometimes they ask you for very specific things, and that can really catch you off guard. And the number one thing I always heard, or that I heard this one time, I should say, is tell me about a specific time that you solved a social problem, so conflict. And they ask you this because when you're going into university, it's not just about grades, right? They want to know that you know how to work with people. So they want to hear, how would you solve problems like this? And you could really take this from anywhere. There's awesome examples from First Robotics. I know I took mine from my part-time job, and talked about that as well. So if they ask you a question like that, just be truly honest, and you want to show them that you're a team player, you can collaborate, which I know all of our first people are. So
that actually makes me think of like one of my questions, which was definitely, it was like a specific situation where you were on a team setting and it did not go as planned. So you will get questions like, a lot of times these supplementary applications, scholarship applications are just like, tell me this great thing you did, do. But yeah, a lot of the times, or sometimes, they will want you to tell them what's a time it didn't work out and what did you do afterwards when looking back. Like, and it's actually, you may not expect it, but it's a really cool thing to like reflect on and to look back on. So then it's okay to be honest and be like, yeah, in this situation, our team worked together and we did not get this done. And I think that's because I could have done better in these ways. And even just having that skill of reflecting and showing that you can do that definitely looks very good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did you come up with one?
Honestly, I can't remember many. Aside from the whole scholarship stuff, I remember distinctly, at least for university applications, they asked technical questions as well, which kind of caught me off guard. Trying to be able to solve a problem using your math skills. But the thing was, it didn't really matter what you said. It was about how you use your problem solving skills to come up with your solution. So we already do a lot of that when we're building a robot, when we're trying to fix a certain mechanism in competition. So it's being able to use those problem solving skills on the spot that really kind of sets you apart from everyone else.
Yeah, I love those types of questions. I had a chance to interview for a very cool company, very, very cool. And one of the things they asked was like, okay, how would you sort this list? But they didn't care about like my knowledge of sorting algorithms or big O of whatever. It was just like, what's your process and what's your process? And like, it just kept, evolving. That's like an in-person one, but yeah.
Yeah, I think my question for one of my university applications was like, estimate the weight of the building, a weight of like a 20-story apartment building. And I was like, I'm not sure, but we'll give it a crack.
So
Just gotta
that's a
go for it.
specific type of problem called a Fermi problem, and I love Fermi problems. I love throwing them at people because you really see how someone's brain works, and you get like a really interesting idea. I just love them as conversation pieces or whatever. So anyone out there, you want to Google Fermi problems? They're like so much fun. And whatever. Maybe we'll do a show on Fermi problems. I don't know.
Yeah. And just remember, like, no matter how whack your answer might be, there's no wrong answers. So you just got to give it your best shot.
I love those answers to those questions because those questions are what scares me the most about interviews and such. Like, what if they ask me a super hard question that I'm not going to be able to answer? So those are really reassuring that's really reassuring to me, and I'm sure to a bunch of other people in the same situation as me. I want to finish with one final question. What if you could give one piece of advice to any first student who's applying for scholarships, what would it be?
Okay, so this one I've thought very hard about. And this is like not about how to write your application. It's just please, please, please do not be too hard on yourself, because there is something so discouraging, and I know this from personal experience, about literally pitting your entire life on like 4 pieces of paper and sending them off to a panel of people who will literally look through them. And this sounds bad to say, but judge what you like, judge it. And there is something very discouraging about getting that email. And yes, I've been very fortunate to get a number of scholarships, but there were so many that I did not get, and that's okay. And there is something discouraging about getting that email of, I'm sorry, we had so many valid applications, we are unable to sponsor you. And that can hurt, but please, please, please do not be don't be too hard on yourself, and know that it's okay not to get them. And that nothing, whether you get it or don't get it, it doesn't make any of the great things you've done to this point in your life any less valid. So please just remember that as you're going through this process.
Yeah, to add on to Sarah's point, as long as you put your best foot forward and you know that you put in all the effort that you could, you can't be disappointed with the outcome. So I would definitely don't beat yourself up over anything, because we've all not gotten a lot of things after applying to a lot of these scholarships. But my piece of advice is to just be genuine. A lot of these scholarships can see right through when you're trying to fluff up something. And I would not advise doing that. You want to tell them your story and why you did it and be genuine about that. And that'll really come across in how you write your essay.
Yeah, and just really quick, so we talked a lot about imposter syndrome today, and that obviously really resonates with me because I struggled with it quite a bit. And what my advice is if you're struggling with that and you really don't think you deserve something, you're like, just remember that cheesy quote that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And every time I think I'm not good for something, I think about my team and I think about how I'm here because of them and I'm representing them. Do this not just for me, but because of the message of the scholarship and because I want to do this for them so I can represent them the best I can. So you can do this, you got this. I'm sure you guys will all do great. So best of luck.
Thank you. Those really help. I'm so hard on myself when I don't get things and such. So like that's helpful. And I always try to fix myself and I'm definitely gonna fix it for these scholarships. But though that's amazing advice and this whole segment's been so from my personal experience is so helpful for me going into this right now. So yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for being on the show. This was like inspiring on so many different levels. This is more than I expected to get out of this, which is really, really cool. So thank you all. Good luck with your exams, and keep focusing on that. And we hope to have you back on the show as volunteers at events. All those opportunities, all those options exist, and stay in touch. And thank you for everything. And for everyone out there in the community, this could be you. This could be you. And also, don't be intimidated. Like I know right now you're probably like, I can't live up to these three. They are so awesome, but you can.